Good morning. Welcome to what is technically our fourth seminar, but really our third, because we had one that's been bumped to November because of the hurricane that came through. Yes, welcome once again, and also to we've got some folks who are online with us as well. This is going to be recorded today again. And made available to the Presbyterian Church nationwide and to any other group that may like to have a copy of today's seminar. But we are grateful to have everybody with us today. Mary Smar is here, representing Oakhurst Presbyterian Church. We've got Madison. I think I saw Madison. Oh, there's Madison over there. Madison is here. She's a youth activist for end gun violence. And we also have Andrew Zipper here, and he is a newly elected school board member up in the Chamblee area, as well as very active in Gabby Gifford's gun program. So he's bringing us a lot of important information and some stuff to take home, I think, as well. So great things from all three of our speakers this morning. I would like at this time to open with prayer. Lord God, you gathered us here on a Saturday. We could be home. We could be doing other things, but we have come here because our hearts are concerned about the violence of guns in our community and their impact on all of us. So open our hearts to hear all the many words today, but don't let it stop there. Let us take these words home and put them into action. Bless those who have come here to speak, that their words may be powerful and lead us to something new. And Lord, we look forward to something good coming from this. In your precious name we pray. Amen. All right. It's my pleasure to turn over to you now the chair of the Presbyterian Peace and Global Witness and the woman responsible for getting all of this put together in the very first place for our gun violence prevention symposiums. Brenda Smith. Anyway.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm glad to see all of you here. First I want to bring you an update. This is our fourth session on schedule. We have the 28th canceled because of the storm. This is on the 16th. But in the meantime, we have gotten well noticed. I got a call from the Louisville office earlier this week asking for us to participate in a dialogue with the South Carolina Presbyterian, who are interested in starting a Gun for Gardens project, much of which we hear about today, and other aspects of congregational efforts to reduce gun violence. Secondly, I was on a Zoom meeting with the Southwest Presbyterian, and they in Albuquerque, New Mexico, are also starting up the Guns and Violence Symposium, and we will be in contact with them as we go forward. So our work is making a difference. We have with us Pat Moore here from who expressed an interest to talk about gun safety and this coalition collaborating with her around gun safety measures to be taken on the legislative office as we start the new year for here in Georgia. So we're making a difference. We're moving forward. We're going to do this. It's not going to stop. Our last session will be in November 16th. But it won't stop there. We're going to keep going with it. We're going to keep doing this work of gun violence, and because we know it's needed. And we anticipate, what's before us as we go into this new year. I want to introduce our panels today. This is a topic on congregational response to gun violence, but also I want to add with that caveat the community response to gun violence. We have Mary Smart here, officer of Oakhurst Presbyterian Church, and they, I believe, are the first efforts to have done guns to gardens product here in Georgia and certainly in the Presbyterian. So we're very glad to have them out. They are our mantra. We're falling behind them in their work. Then we have Andrew Jeffer here, who is again a member of the DeKalb County School Board, and he represents Gabby Givers, Georgia Ambassador Gabby Givers gun owners this week. And lastly, we have Madison Drew. Those of you who were with us on the first session, she received such critical acclaim that we've gotten her involved in other measures since then. The Peace Fellowship National Group, of which we are a member of, are doing a youth podcast. And I've asked her to do a youth podcast for Southeast Georgia on gun violence. They have a group in Southwest, and so she will be in contact with them to do that work. So we're glad to have her. And for Peace Local Partnership members, she has agreed to join our committee. And so we're very glad to have her join our committee. She's our youngest, 16, but we'll train her right. So we're glad to have her join with us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary, and Mary can come up and talk with us about Guns to Gardens and what that project has done to change the community around Oakhurst Presbyterian Church. Thank you, Mary.
Good morning.
Morning.
As she said, I'm Mary Smart. I'm a member at Oakhurst Presbyterian Church. I'm also a co-chair of the Peacemaking and Justice Committee there at Oakhurst. And we have been involved in guns work for a number of years, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And presented to the Atlanta Presbytery this past year, we were one of the churches that took the overture to the Atlanta Presbytery that was finally approved at General Assembly. And one of the statistics that I shared with them, I want to share with you. In an average year, 1,868 people die by guns in Georgia, costing $23.9 billion, of which $597.8 million is paid by you, the taxpayers. Georgia has the 17th highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. And I think if you were here at the first session, you heard one of our legislators talk about guns that leave Georgia and go to other states even. I was asked to talk about our work to end gun violence at Oakhurst Presbyterian Church, and I will talk about guns to guns. We've done a few other things. We actually got involved in this work in 2020. And many of you may recall that in 2020, we had an interesting situation where George Floyd was killed by a police officer. It was not with a gun, but it started our conversation about police violence. And so we started with Sunday school classes at Decatur. And we had a Sunday school class on policing and violence. And then, of course, 2022, I think we had a class, you can move this slide. We had a class on one of the resources that you have in your toolkit which Standing Our Holy Ground. That's a video series as well as study guides, and it's probably at least 10 sessions, and we didn't use all of them. You can choose. We used about 5 of those sessions, and we provided that as education to the congregation because we feel that education and advocacy is a big part of what we do. The second thing that we've done is to participate in national events. I'm not sure when it started, but in June we wear orange, and that's why we're wearing orange today. There's a Wear Orange weekend, and that was started because a young woman from Chicago was killed after participating in an inaugural parade for President Barack Obama's second inaugural. She was shot and killed. And so in the aftermath of that, a group of young teenagers from Chicago started this event, Wear Orange Weekend. And so that has continued to honor Khadijah Pendleton, is her name. And also the more than 120 people that are killed every day in the U.S. with gun violence. So that continues. And so this year, for instance, they had an event starting on Friday. The Reverend Timothy McDonald is an outreach community center. They had a program there with excellent presenters. Many of the panelists were individuals that had been affected directly by gun violence. And so a lot of them have started their own organizations. Anyway, they had presentations there from a number of people that talked about gun violence, what they're doing now and how it's impacted their lives. The Emory Hillendale Violence Prevention Program, which is part of the hospital, had a peace walk and a resource fair on Saturday. We also participated in that. So a part of it is being out in the community, sharing information, and that's a large part of what we've been doing. We also share information through our monthly newsletter. We have a newsletter we refer to as the log. And so an example of some of the information we've shared is on the screen. I don't know if you can read that, it's pretty small. But it focuses on the SMART program. So in some instances, we share information about just notifying people of what's going on with gun violence. In some instances, we share information asking people to take action. And so this is one of the instances where we ask people to actually take action against gun violence. One of the things, so we do this monthly to share information. One of the things we ask them to do is if you have individuals, kids in your home that play or visit other families, there's an ASK program. And so we say, you should ask these parents, do you have guns in the home? And if you do you have them secured so that your kids are safe if they go into those rooms or into those homes. So we share that on a monthly basis. That's one of the things that we do. We have started Guns to Gardens. This is what we our fourth year that we've done Guns to Gardens. And I did not put any information on the slides regarding that, but I do have some information we can look at. These are flyers that we used in 2022 and in 2023 that share information about the dates that we're having Guns to Gardens. It also talks about why you do a Guns to Gardens event. So this is an opportunity for individuals to turn in unwanted guns We're not asking people if they're hunting with their guns, we don't want them to decide that they need to bring them. We're saying unwanted guns. And so, there are a number of reasons why people want to get rid of guns, and those are the guns that we want. We want guns that people may have inherited. We want guns that are not, they don't know how to secure them. I was talking to someone last week that said that they have a friend who has a gun. She's not sure if the gun is loaded or not. She's not familiar with how guns operate. So this is a gun that should not be in the home, and this is a gun that she inherited. So those are people that we definitely want to invite to bring their guns in. So our living tour, or our flyers say to people, we want you to bring guns that you think might get into the wrong hands, that might do harm, that someone in your household may get access to. And we want you to bring those in. What we have is trained individuals there. So we will have, tomorrow actually, we will have a session to plan for the event that is coming up on December the 7th. We are asking for partners for that event. If you're interested in volunteering, you can come and volunteer with us. If you are interested in co-sponsoring, you can let me know, and we want co-sponsors for that event. But we will have training for volunteers because we do need people we had a chop saw operator. I think one of the pictures that you might have seen shows a chop saw operator, and that's how we dismantle the guns. We do not take ownership of guns, so that individuals that come bring their guns, and as the flyer says, we want those guns unloaded and in the trunk of the vehicle. So we have someone there that's trained with guns, so they will double check to make sure that they are unloaded. And then they will go to the chop saw operator, and they will be dismantled while that person is there. We do not take ownership of any of the guns. They are dismantled while the individuals are right there. So that is pretty much the process. Volunteers are trained for positions. We also have a person there. If someone wants to talk about why they're turning their gun, it can be emotional for some people, especially if the guns were used in a violent situation, a suicide, because as you know, that's one of the primary, one of the highest rates of death from gun violence is suicide. So we have clergy there, we have individuals to greet the people, to show them the way to get to where they need to be, to unload the guns from their car, and to dismantle the guns while they're still there. Last year we had participation from North Decatur and from St. Mark's Methodist Church, United Methodist Church. So churches are invited, other groups are invited to participate with us in this event. I wanted to mention, lastly, the Overture. Presbyterians, I'm sure, are aware that the Overture was passed this past year at General Assembly. Oakhurst was one of the churches that took this to Columbia Presbyterian. It was taken to General Assembly by a number of Presbyterians and it passed unanimously. But this Overture actually gives you some information about things that churches can do. One, actively support and pray for the emotional, spiritual, and mental health needs of children, promote secure gun safety and gun storage, encourage parents and caregivers to take gun safety actions, end gun marketing for children, promote gun security technology, and that was new for me. I did not know that gun makers can actually there is a technology that says that only the gun owner can fire that gun. Ask for change, and that's one of the things that we're doing. Guns to Guard is one of the things that's considered failure. But there are other things that you can do in your congregations, violent interruption programs, support youth-led initiatives, and also vote, and that's an important part. I know there are organizations that are set up. Georgia is in a position of being in a difficult position, as one of our senators mentioned in the first session, and that there's not a lot of energy related to controlling guns or reducing the number of guns. Gun safety, of course, is something that we focus on very easily. But we can, in fact, talk to our legislators, talk to our candidates for office, and find out where they are with gun safety. So voting and being involved in that process is very important. And I'm just going to Okay, so these flyers are from previous. If you look at the flyer, it will have either 22 or 23 on it. These are old flyers, they're not current flyers. So December 7th is the date. If you want to participate with us, just let me know, and we can get you involved.
Thank you, Mary. We're going to try to hold off questions until all our speakers speak, and then we'll have general questions. But in terms of this effort and Dickens in your body, we will be doing it soon. So, all right, Andrew, can I ask you something?
Wait, no, Madison.
Oh, Madison. Okay. I'm not reading that. Madison, please come forward and talk, speak with us about youth and your view and what we need to learn from you. We're glad to have you.
Hi everyone.
Good morning.
So everybody in this room, I'm sure, can think of a child my age and younger. I'm 16. And I'm sure you're either thinking of your grandchild or somebody else's child that you really love and care about. Think about the last time you talked to them. Did they seem okay? Did they seem happy? Were they quiet? Were they loud? Were they held back? Or were they aggressive? When was the last time you truly asked that child, are you okay? Because maybe they're not okay. If you asked me that question 8 months ago, I would have said no, that I was not okay. But if you ask me that question now, I would say, I'm doing so much better, thank you for asking. The problem, however, is that we don't ask youth today what they're feeling like we should. Instead, the questions are, how are your grades? What sports do you play? What do you want to be when you grow up? And those are all great questions to ask, but the best question you could ever ask a child is, are you okay? That's the best question you could ever ask, because everything else in that child's life stems from that one simple question. Everything the child does can be affected by that 3-letter phrase. I wonder if anyone asked the school shooter at Appalachian High School, Colt Gray, growing up, are you okay? Or Nicholas Cruz, or Charles Whitman, or Dylan Claiborne, or Eric Harris, or Jack Robbins, or Christopher Harper, or Patrick Edwards, or you see how the list keeps going?
Mm-hmm.
You see how the list is so long? You see how the list is actually longer, and I just stopped at 7 names because if I kept going, if I kept reading every single shooter, I would be here all day. That's a shame. That is a shame, and it's a tragedy. A tragedy that could have been avoided if we sat young people down and asked them, are you okay? Even though clearly they are not okay. Talking to them and asking them about their mental health and showing that you care is already a step in the right direction. We can step our foot in the door and do our best to help see whatever it is that they're going through, and that they don't have to be alone. But we as a society have turned our backs to kids who clearly are not okay. We worry about the gun rather than the person behind it. We first care about the shooting before they can even pick up the gun. But if we care about them before they pick up the gun, then they won't be a shooter. If we first acknowledge the hurt person, then maybe we can stop them before they hurt other people. I want everybody in the room quickly to raise their right hand. Now raise it just a little bit higher. Now ask yourself this question. Why did you give me 100% the first time? That is what happens when we as a group don't do something about a situation the first time it happens. That's what happens when you sit back after the first sign of trouble in a team instead of doing something to help them. Checking on your children's mental health should be just as much of a priority as is their physical health. Both of those physical and mental aspects play a part in who that child is and who they are going to grow up to be. So we can either ignore the signs and choose ignorance, or we can embrace the youth and ask them truly, are you okay?
You have to hold back the tears.
Please don't.
You gotta hold back the tears. Because when a child challenges you, when a youth challenges you, what can you say? Andrew, will you please come?
Could we do the little interview video, just a few minutes of it first?
Yeah. Certainly can. Yep. And I think that is
The man accused.
Let me introduce
this
you
one.
to
Yeah.
Lila,
That
who's
one, yeah,
16 years
okay.
old. She was actually, let me introduce you to Lila, who's 16 years old. She was actually in algebra class just this morning, elbow to elbow with that shooter, Colt Gray, as he's been named by the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. Lila, let me first start with, how are you? How are you coping?
I'm okay. I'm pushing through it, talking to friends, making sure, everyone else is okay, checking on people around me.
Can you bring me back? What happened?
I just remember, the moment that it happened, he was at the door, and I knew they were looking for him already, but he was at the door, and they almost let him in until they backed up, and then he turned away, and that's when you hear, the first rounds of fire.
So he was in class with you, in algebra class, he left. Then he came back, was at the door, and then knocking to be let back in. Why? You told me something about the doors.
Yeah, they lock automatically, so you have to be let in to come back into our classroom. So I think he wanted to come to us first.
Come to you first to shoot?
Yes, to shoot us class.
And then he was at the door, student went to open the door, and then what happened?
She backed away. I think she saw him, or maybe somebody said something, but I'm pretty sure she saw that he had a gun, and so she backed away.
So she was about to let him into the class, you think to shoot the students, saw that he had a gun, did not let him in. What happened next?
He turns to the classroom to what would have been my right, and he just starts to shoot, and you hear about 10 to 15 rounds back to back.
What did you hear? What did you think was going on in those moments?
My name is Andrew Zipper. This is why I'm here. I'm here to protect kids in schools, and I'm here to prevent unnecessary violence directed at children or from children. Madison, I just had a real quick question for you, but what high school do you go to? North Cobb High School. Okay. My son is a graduate of Decatur School of the Arts right down the street. When do you remember a time when we did not have active shooter drills at school? Have Have you grown up with active shooter drills in your classroom every year since you remember?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the school system we live in. This is the reality of the place we live in. So, who am I and why am I here? My name is Andrew Ziffer. I'm a proud father of a college freshman right now at Columbia College in Chicago. He's going to film school. Recently just graduated this year from school down the street. I'm also, as Reverend David said, I'm the school board member-elect for Decatur County from Dunwoody, Chamblee, Brookhaven, and Dorville. So I took office in January. I was elected in May. 2 years ago, when Uvalde happened, my son, who was a sophomore at the time, walked around the street after he found out what happened, and he walked around the street crying, powerless, crying, not knowing what to do, not knowing if he was going to show up at school one day and get shot. And he came home, and he was in tears. And watching him cry, because he didn't know whether he was going to come home one day. Because somebody had access to a firearm, and should not have had access to a firearm. It was a very sad way to live. And that day, I promised him, and I promised my wife, that I'm going to do something. And so I looked around, and I honestly looked for a nonpartisan organization that focuses on firearm safety, gun policy that lets logic and reason drive the conversation, not even emotion. It's not in conflict with the Second Amendment, but actually supports the Second Amendment and supports safety. And that's when I found Gabby Giffords and her Gun Owners for Safety organization. So that's me with Gabby Giffords. Everybody knows the Gabby Gifford story?
Oh, yes.
Madison, you know the Gabby Gifford story? Mom can tell you one day, you know. But it's a horrific story that turned into an amazing story. And Gabby Giffords now has a gun policy organization that has collects data from all over the world, so all over the U.S., with statistics on shootings, any type of gun-related incident. The law center has the data. And inside that Gabby Giffords organization, there's a group called Gun Owners for Safety. Gun Owners for Safety is a group of hunters, gun owners, collectors, and just people who believe in just the Second Amendment and want to keep a firearm in their house to protect themselves and their family. Giffords is the one of the foremost gun protection organizations led by Gabby Giffords and Senator Mark Kelly. You know Mark Kelly? So they're married. So just as a side note, I think a lot of people would love to marry an astronaut, right? So she married an astronaut. She married a rocket scientist. That's pretty awesome. And she has turned her tragedy into a movement. And so in 2011, when she was shot, literally at an event where she was meeting her local population and her local citizens who she was up for election, and Jared Walker came up and just shot her. And not only did he shoot her, he shot a child, he shot other adults and seniors. And it was just hard. And that needs to stop. There's a gun violence slide that we have, and I'm not going to read the whole slide, but what I will say is that gun violence is not something that's always thought out and prepared for. Gun violence is impulsive. Gun violence is sometimes by the seat of your pants, and very rarely is it logic and reason. So, roughly, suicides make up half of gun violence issues. And if you decide that you don't want to end your life, there's the one way you can end your life where there is no coming back is a gun. And it's a lot of times it's an impulsive decision that someone makes within a few minutes, and it's done. And especially when it comes to children, having access to firearms, and either taking the gun and turning it on themselves, or turning it on others, We just don't need that in our world. And Georgia is not killing, by the way. Georgia ranks 14th out of 50. I think you gave a statistic about that too. And so Georgia's not winning the contest. So, Difference Organization, its mission is to reduce gun violence, shift the conversation, and shift the culture of how we feel about guns in our country, and promote responsible gun ownership. And honestly, if you go look at all of the gun policy organizations, such as the NRA, a couple of related organizations, on their website, they talk about gun safety and how to secure firearms, and how to make sure children do not have access to firearms. One of the biggest things I ask people every day is, hey, are you for toddlers having access to weapons, or are you against toddlers having access to weapons? And I think that's a good starting point for a conversation, because the answer is very clear on that. Toddlers and children should not have access to firearms. We have a firearm in our house. I don't think our child or son knew there was a firearm in the house until he was in high school. And it was always locked in a safe and secured away from him. He had no access to it, no possibility to ever access that weapon. So the Difference Organization right now is formed in a handful of states. We have formed in Georgia. There are 2 ambassadors in Georgia right now, myself and a woman named Claudia Ferlin, who is a pediatrician, and she's also a member of the Georgia Majority for Gun Safety, which is a group of doctors who are lobbying hard for safe gun policy in our legislature right now. The solutions we support are pretty big, but honestly right now, we're focusing on low-hanging fruit, and we're focusing on safe storage. We're focusing on making sure Georgia passes safe storage laws so guns are kept away from children and others who should not have access to them. Domestic abuse, people who are convicted of domestic abuse, children develop their mental health issues, or honestly adults develop their mental health issues too. And so right now, there's a safe storage committee, and I testified in front of the Senate a few months ago. There's a copy of my testimony that you can have if you like. And this is very easy for us to do, and the more we get up and we talk about it, and the more of us that show up at these meetings, the better off we'll be. We can skip a few slides because the secure storage right now is what we're talking about. If you just go to an internet search right now, I went to an internet search, and within 3 minutes, I found these stories. I found a story that this past April, a 9-year-old came across an unsecured gun in the house. They fired it, and the consequences were devastating. In Decatur County this February, a 3-year-old child found a firearm that was left unsecured. They shot themselves in the face, and that was it for them. In Cobb County last September, a 1-year-old child found an unsecured firearm in the house. They accidentally shot themselves in the head, and the child did not survive. So tell me how this makes any sense. Adults are not protecting our children the way they should, and our state legislators are not protecting our children the way they should either. So whenever you hear someone talking about safe storage, engage in a conversation and do something about it. This is a very long presentation, I'm just giving you the highlights. But secure gun storage. There's a narrative being created that secure gun storage is taking away people's Second Amendment rights. There's a gun safe over there, I can demonstrate it later. It's one that hold a stopwatch in their hand and time me, but it takes me less than a second to open up that gun safe. And I don't think that split second that's going to open that gun safe is in any way conflicting with the Second Amendment right now. And we need to put logic and reason back in this conversation and take the emotion out of it. And so I urge all of you to get involved in the conversation, go to the Gold Dome, tell you all the ways we're going to have those conversations and let your voices be heard. And that's, and I encourage you to go there too, and give you all the dates. But honestly, one of the reasons we're doing this right now is 45 minutes each of us. There was a horrific event. One day that 45-minute drive will not be a 45-minute drive to a horrific event. It's going to be a 5-minute drive to your house or a 10-minute drive to Metro event. And I don't want to see that horrific event. And I especially don't want to see that horrific event in Decatur County when I'm a school board member. So thank you for your time, and hope it was helpful.
If we have questions, I think, so we can record those questions, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you have a question, to come up to this mic. And speak as loudly as you can into that mic. And then whoever you're asking the question to, I'm going to ask if you all would come back to this mic. So I hate to have you moving around like that, but that way we can record as well as everybody hear the answer here.
Okay, as we begin to play our questions and thoughts, to ask each of our speakers collectively, I'd like us to keep in mind the action steps that we can take as our upcoming Georgia legislative group that's meeting in as early as December. If you are willing to meet with your local representatives, I think that on our first session, we had a Mayor Power here, and she spoke of the doctors who are gathered and organized to speak around gun safety and gun storage. So we will be meeting with her and the doctors and physicians group, as well as we want to collaborate with your group and Pat Mo's group on storage safety in the upcoming Georgia legislature. So those are the action steps we want to take right now. Questions you have, please raise your hand and come to the mic. Thank you, be good.
Tell us who the question is for.
I think this question is for Amy. Couple of questions.
Yeah, you're on, but you just have to talk loudly for us. We don't have another mic, so just speak loudly.
Do you have to be a member to be a member of the language facility?
Yes, if you'll come over to the lectern.
The Difference Organization is a organization that has gun policy legislation, gun policy research, gun violence research, and there's a big Difference organization that you not to be a gun owner for, but they're focused on sound gun policy. And then inside that Difference organization, there's a gun owners for safety organization that consists of gun owners. So if anybody here is a gun owner in this room, would like to join the group, we meet once a month virtually online, and we talk about various things. But yes, you can be a member of a Difference organization without being a gun owner.
I appreciate you saying you need to take the emotion out of it and deal with statistics, but I also appreciate that you're telling the stories which trigger some of your emotions. I'm not children. I don't know how you really say it, but you do need to use, I guess, dealing with what. Well, the question is, why do you need to take the emotion out of it?
Well, I can just go with it purely just from information and facts and what happens. Children are dying because they have access to firearms. How do you prevent children from not dying? You take away their access to firearms. Why does a 1-year-old have access to a firearm? Why does a 3-year-old have access to a firearm? Why does a 9-year-old have access to a firearm? 9-year-olds and 3-year-olds don't go hunting. They don't go to target practice anymore. Their parents or their relative or they will be at a friend's house. Those weapons are not secure. And one of the conversations I would have with my kid when one of her other people's houses was, does that parent have a firearm and is it secure? So that is a very easy conversation to have and a very easy question to ask. And if somebody gets offended by you asking whether you have an unsecured firearm in their house, the kid should probably not go to their house.
I think one also the emotional side of it too is when somebody will just look at you and go, you're trying to take my guns away and my Second Amendment rights, and take that emotional stand as opposed to dealing with the facts. Yeah.
Right, and a lot of times I'll also say follow the money.
Yeah.
And if you just follow the money of donors, political campaigns, NRA ratings, this is unfortunately become a partisan issue. Children dying is not a partisan issue, and I have tried to take the partisanship out of this issue and make it about logic and reason and how do you save lives. How do you prevent somebody from killing themselves? How do you prevent somebody from hurting others? How do you do that with sound gun policy? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Or it's, I guess it's from the, thank you guys for the work that you do. I realize the importance of, having awareness and having a conversation. It's difficult. I wanted to ask for the Guns to Garden initiative, how is the turnout been? And have you seen it increase or have you seen it change over the course of the time you've had it?
Well, we've seen some increase. It has not been great. And one of the things that we get is that we're in downtown Decatur, okay? And so a lot of people in downtown Decatur don't see gun violence necessarily as an issue for them. So one of the things we considered this year is looking at other locations where gun violence is an issue, to have more people get information about it. But we've had an increase. We haven't had a huge response. This past year we had 8 guns that were dismantled. A combination of handguns and longer guns. So we're working on that, and we're trying to get churches involved that are in areas where there may be more guns that need to be looked at. People may be more interested in doing it. So
I would love to get involved in this group.
okay, we'll give you the
I just want to add one thing to that. One of the initiatives we're trying to do is to get folks, faith communities, different faith communities, to adopt or begin a project. And a lot of faith communities say, well, we don't know what to do. Well, here's a prime example of collaborating with Oakhurst Church. And that would be a good project for any faith community to come and support what is already happening. Yeah.
So I was getting up to say also, this is why we have a toolkit. Because in the toolkit, we will share with you ways in which the congregations can do it, can be involved. May not be Guns to Garden initiative. I think I was talking to Deborah earlier, Deborah, the chief of Johns Creek, to talk about ways in which we can get involved as a congregation. We would like this effort, Decades Against Gun Violence, to really focus, beginning with the Presbyterian Church, to get them involved. Yes.
Who are you talking, who's the question for? Which are our speakers? For Andrew? Okay.
We have talked about And she said that there is an opening in Georgia. Now, she thinks maybe there's some small changes in system that's done. And it's all good what you're talking about, because I'm concerned about assault weapons. When we have assault weapons in our culture, it is ridiculous. And everybody knows nobody needs an assault weapon. Why can't you try to get a ban on an assault weapon? Or going into a school, even in the street?
Well, who should take, Senator and House Representative? Who are the names? The person you're speaking to at the State House, you said,
I've talked to Amanda Judge,
oh, yeah.
I've talked to Lonnie Barnes, I've talked to Amanda Jones. We are on this issue.
Right.
A lot of women care about this issue, and we're tired of our children being harmed because they have to worry about these shooters coming to the school with assault weapons.
Right, I can tell you, Elena Parent and Manuel Jones, they're both 100% on our side on this issue, and they do the best they can to get their voice heard, and then it's back to being a partisan issue, and who's ever in control is going to control the conversation, which is unfortunate. And so, but it is becoming less of a fight, it's becoming less of a partisan issue on low-hanging fruit, that I call it, like safe storage. Safe storage is not a Second Amendment violation or infringement at all, and so those are the things that we need to focus on. So I think we need to focus on baby steps. Let's start with safe storage that has the potential to pass beginning next year at Gold Dome, and so I'm crossing my fingers. And if you were to know, testify.
We have taken so many baby steps, and
Yeah.
when are we going to do something about gun dealers? Because our children are growing up learning that the way to solve a problem is to shoot somebody or fight with somebody. If we Christians take care of that piece, we've got to do more than talk about lock up the gun.
Yeah,
And we need to speak out. I mean, what's wrong with our churches?
in the difference group, there are a lot of hunters, and a lot of hunters who actually talk about weapons and rifles. And the AR platform weapon, which is the assault rifle that you're referencing, they talk about it as one of the most horrible hunting weapons there is. So it's not a hunting weapon, it is strictly a military weapon. And especially when you have these magazines that hold 10 bullets, 20 bullets, that's a problem.
You know, any other country that allows assault weapons on the street, that tells you something.
Yes.
I mean, we're supposed to be this great Christian nation, and we aren't doing anything about it. I think it's terrible.
I will say that in Israel, the new military personnel, so the new people who are going to the Israeli military, they are trained when they are young, out of high school, on how to use a firearm. And from day one, they are trained on how to be responsible with it, how to use it. And when they carry it around, because they do carry it around, it's actually fastened to them, and so it cannot be taken away. And so there's little precautions like that that are very intelligent uses of those type of military weapons that we just want to implement.
Okay, I have a question that it probably is for different people. So, the legislative updates as far as the hearings go, when will that information be available? Do you know what, are there, I mean, I know we can all go and talk to our legislators individually, but are there some more hearings that are planned before June?
They are not, as I know of a date, but I'm going to be reaching out to Lynn County, and I'll do that next week, because we want to follow up on our last session, November 16th, and we want to have a next step before we meet on November 16th as to what we can do with the Georgia legislative year coming up around gun safety. Not only storage, safe storage, we are pushing that because of the winding bill. I was back in the Appalachian High School last Monday, just to see where we are, how the students are doing, how the teachers are doing. They are still, of course, 6 weeks later, still suffering from the trauma of September 4th. So, but, you know, we want to meet with the Georgia legislature. Karen has already reached out to the Commissions against gun violence, as well as partnerships. We have a pledge that we would include in our program today. We are meeting with our legislators as well in Barrow County. So I would call out all Messenger from Barrow County, a Republican, to talk about the pledge and these issues. So we want to continue this, as I'm saying today, and I want the message to go out. We're not going to stop. But the next step is for legislative advocacy.
So my second question.
Can we go back to your first question? Andrew, if you ever, you have your ear to the ground as well. So anytime you're aware of something, a hearing, if you could let me know or Brenda know, we'll get the word out to people. That's a good way of disseminating as well. Yeah.
So my second question is, and I don't know if this is a good tool to engage the community, but it's gun laws. And I don't know if a different group provides free gun locks or if police departments provide free gun locks, but we're trying to identify if that's something that you could use as a rally point for your community, which is a relatively incremental process to talk about gun safety. So that's my second question. And it looks like police departments have those available, but I don't know.
Yes. Well, we've reached out to the police department to get them involved in this particular proposal. To answer that very question for you, and we'll continue to reach out to them. We would like to have them here on the list too, to talk about that issue, and then what happens to guns that are confiscated from criminals or gangs? What happens to those guns as well? Yes.
So, to answer a previous question, Elena Parent is actually one of the sponsors of the Safe Storage Firearm Study Committee. So she's actually one of the sponsors. Emmanuel Jones is the leader of the committee. I have the whole committee list here if anybody wants to be on the list. It's made up, I think it's like 5 senators. As far as gun locks, we, Giffords organization does give away gun locks at some of our events. Here's an example of a trigger lock. You just put this on, and then lock the firearm, and your toddler can no longer access the firearm. So we do that, and if you're interested in actually having an event where there's a community that would appreciate the gun locks or being gun locks we get out, we're happy to participate in that.
Well, I think with our Presbyterian initiative, if we had access to something to rally people to come to us, and then us have our own stand, like we are promoting gun safety, this is a device that can help that. I think that would be, that's a good path to follow to try to get into the community and have the Presbyterian solution.
Right. There's a great conversation about people don't want firearms in markets, and they don't want firearm cases anymore. That's a great conversation. It's a choice for people. But a lot of times people do not want to give up their firearms. They just want to have that security. And I'm a big fan of either option the person takes. But honestly, this is, we're allowed to do either one. This is a free speech country, and we're allowed to make our own decisions. And I have some sample gun locks I can use, or you can take some with you as a demo, and then we can plan something in the future.
Great.
Okay, my third question is Madison. Okay. So Madison, having a teenager right in front of me, we've asked our youth groups before, what kind of mental health seminars can we put together to address concerns that you may have? And so my question is, you said you're okay now, but if somebody had asked you, are you okay, 8 months ago, would you have said, I'm not well? Would you have actually revealed that?
I think a lot of times it depends on the person, it depends on their circumstances. I know for me, I come from a family that's very open and we communicate all the time. So for me, saying that I wasn't okay was very easy, and it wasn't something that I felt like I had to hide from my loved ones. But I know for some friends, in households where, one friend, she has 6 siblings, so she's the oldest, so she's too busy worrying about baby brother and baby sister, so she doesn't get time to tell mom and dad that she's not okay. Or someone else who doesn't even have mom and dad, who lives with grandparents who, are a little bit older, and she has to help take care of them. It's not easy for her to say, hey, I'm not okay. So I think a lot of the times it comes from, we all live in different circumstances, and it depends on the person. For me, I will always be, I feel, able to speak freely to them, if I'm not okay. But for other things, a lot of times, still feel free to say that.
All right, if you were an advisor and trying to help me identify a mental health seminar for teenagers, because we've had rashes of suicides in our community dating back to the mid-2000s, when the event, our Will to Live Fun Run, is based on suicides. And there were so many, because my kids, I have 4, were all impacted, each age groups, and they're 10 years span. So if you were going to try to put together a mental health program or seminar or information session that targeted your age group, what would it look like?
I would say, first of all, I would say private more than anything. I think a lot of the times doing big, public, open forum type thing, and, we had an assembly at our school for it. Nobody wanted to stand up. Nobody wanted to speak up. Because when you're in big groups like that, you don't want to find something else that can single yourself out more than you probably already feel singled out. So I would say, first of all, probably more private and maybe split up into different groups or even one-on-one. I think one-on-one communication, a lot of times we lack that. I know at my school, the ratio of counselors to students is, I want to say it's 1 to 400, 500 kids. That's I think it's an impossible task for one person to talk to 500 kids all the time. It's just not attainable. So I would say probably more one-on-one things. And that's where having more adults comes into play, because the more adults there are, the more there is room for it to, private and open. So I would say first be private. I would also say that a lot of the times, sometimes it's just best to let the child talk and not even ask questions. Just let them say what's on their mind. Because I feel like sometimes when questions are asked, it guides the child's answers and it guides their opinions and their thoughts. So rather than you ask questions, maybe just say whatever you want and just let them talk. And then also another thing too is, I know obviously there's confidentiality agreements and things like that, but a lot of the times things don't stay private. And that's just how it is nowadays at school. Obviously there's gossip, obviously there's people talking, but I think there needs to be some type of way to secure all the information that someone says or that a child says, and keep it just to those 2 people. Or if they want to bring their parent in, a way to bring the parent in and communicate. Sometimes you don't want to. So.
Madison, that's very helpful because I'm thinking a completely different vehicle. And you're basically saying that's not really going to be appropriate. That's not going to get you to the teenage group, the group that we're trying to reach. So thank you very much.
Yes. And I would also say too, this is also a thing. I personally rely on friends. So children nowadays, my age teens, we talk to each other. We sort of somehow become each other's therapists. That's not healthy at all. Because while I'm, listening to my friends' issues, I have problems in my own. And that's not to say that I don't want to help my friends, but that's to say that I can't, take on everything that you're going through and then try to deal with what I'm going through as well. So I would say there needs to be a healthy balance of finding ways to, get teens to not talk to each other less, but be more open to talking to the adults in their lives rather than treating each other as therapists. Yeah, exactly.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Thank you, that's great.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. Close to the program. But, I am very interested in ways in which we can be relational and build relationships, and with the children as well. And I also believe, as a social worker, don't ask the question if you don't want to hear the answer. Don't ask the question. It's a hard question to say to a child or to an adult, are you okay? Because it says that it implies that you're going to do something and you get the answer. And what I've taken on is, in the last year or so, quite frankly, is because I do so much work here in Fulton, in Decatur County, that I get one day a week to where I live, Brown County, and just being in the schools with the kids. They know my face now. I was at elementary school just yesterday. Thomas Smith, those kids come and say, what happened you did last night? They'll say, my brother took me up. My father's not working. They'll say all kinds of things to me. What do you do? Well, they know if you are safe, they will, you're going to do something to help them. You're going to have some response. An open listening ear, I think, is so important in this hard discussion around gun violence. But as adults, I think, we don't get this question very often. But I've come to ask randomly of people that I meet, adults and children and youth, particularly that are you okay? How you doing? How you doing? Says a lot. So I think in these times it's very important. I hear, I know Anne can believe, but I hear her frustration about it. On my way coming here to this meeting today, I passed a event in Barrow County where they were selling guns there. Selling guns. And we just had a meeting there. So, September 4th. But this goes on. We're still in the press, we're still in the view this work. Are there any further questions or answers? Questions you have? All right, yes. Okay.
A couple more questions. This is probably for Andrew. Should we be looking at the red flag laws when, families know there's a problem? How do you talk? Because have the family take guns away from the kids. Kids want them from there. Do everybody. And another question is, I've heard that police departments actually unload weapons, their old weapons, to the public.
Mhm.
What should we be, maybe not allowing?
Go back to this one. I know it's in here. Yeah.
And so the difference organization, first of all, we have to be practical and we have to be, what's possible. And so with state legislature right now, the one thing that is possible is safe storage, called low-hanging fruit. And so right now, that is our focus. But on the screen, those are the solutions, differences proposing right now. But universal background checks, you can still buy weapons and some type of gun shows without background checks. Domestic violence protection, so somebody who's convicted of domestic violence does not have access to a firearm. Extreme risk laws, which are also called red flag laws, and funding violence prevention programs for going in communities that have a high level of violence and how do you actually prevent violence. And then, honestly, we need data. So how do you actually figure out what's happening with gun violence? What kind of shootings are there? What kind of suicide rates are there? And so that's a big, huge effort inside of this organization. And, you know, this 16-year-old had access to a weapon. Question to ask, I don't know. Talk about that. And then, of course, some very safe storage laws. So those are things that DIFRA working on. I'm a big fan of baby steps because it's just a matter of what's reasonable. And so if you take one step and you have success there, then we can go on to the next piece. But the appetite for gun policy legislation that politicians and political motivated groups will allow is very limited right now, unfortunately.
I'd just like to invite cooperation from other groups. You mentioned police departments. And we have been in touch with police departments, and they're very protective. The Presbyterian Church Fellowship started an initiative to work with police departments on guns that they confiscate. We have not been able to find out what actually happens to those guns. So we are interested in forming a group to talk with the police department. We tried individual contacts. So if there are people interested in following up with that, finding out what happens to those guns, trying to have them dismantled, maybe, or whatever we can do to help with that. So if you're interested in that, please contact me. We can work on that.
Mary, we put an invitation out to the Decatur Police Department to either for the chief or someone, he would have a representative come, but we heard nothing back from them.
Well, we made a personal contact with Decatur County Police Department, and initially they were, excited about it. But when it came right down to talking specifics, then they kind of backed off.
Okay.
Yeah, but the Presbyterian Fellowship has made some inroads with, in some areas nationwide.
Well, that's in addition to attending the December 7th meeting at Guns and Gardens, we want to put that also on the agenda. To be part of that, and I'm going to extend it beyond the eight. I want to include Carroll County. So that we have some involvement. We're going to stay focused on Carroll County. I know when the news often in the carriage show, we go on to the next step, but it is where we live. We're all of us. I heard earlier someone say 25 minutes, this kind of violence. You know how close that is? That's very close. Well, they're not be next door to you. And I think the perception that this is a very safe community. It's just that perception. It may or may not be the reality. And we don't even have an event happen here to bring home. So, we thought that there are counties and safe too. There's less people, more farm, more suburban area, but little did we know, a 16-year-old was given a gun as a gift, and he walked into a school. You know, it's not only having the gun in the home unsafe, but actually what you are doing with that gun in the home, and that's good. We see that. So next on our agenda is a pledge we have. We're asking that, I think Pat submitted this to us. So we're asking us that we take this to heart. Speak with your legislators, speak with your church, speak with your pastor, speak with your session, speak with your ally, community organizations about this effort that we have. So I'm going to read it to you, and it's up on the screen. Okay, as in the 2024 Gun Safety Candidate Pledge. We're in the election season, so we know that we're here. As a candidate for elected office in the state of Georgia, I pledge if I am elected, I will support gun safety legislation in Georgia, especially specifically the following: secure storage laws, including specific protections for children, ensure that all gun purchases and transfers are subject to background check, create mechanisms to identify and prevent firearm purchases by individuals who are at risk for illegal or violent activities with guns. I want to underscore domestic violence here as well, including domestic violence and self-harm. Increase funding for hospital and community-based violence intervention initiatives. I would like to also, the last one, underscore the need for increased funding for chaplaincy. We need chaplains involved in the school system, in the community, to talk about gun violence. A little risky. We need chaplains to meet with gangs and talk about gun violence. So we got to do this. We need to do this work, and so I'm committed that we will follow through with it as we go forward. Now, the last thing I have walk around with those toolkits. This is a toolkit from our fellowship, Peace Fellowship. I am offering to you. Please take one. They are at a cost of $10, but let that stop you. I will cover your $10. I just need you to take one and begin to participate with one before I forget. Madison, would you give one I have for you as a member? Thank you. So, we are dispersing these toolkits and asking the community and churches to take them and begin the conversation in your local area. For all black schools and universities, I'll be meeting with the Emory group, Black Caucus, tomorrow on another matter regarding some community work they engage in, and I'll be giving them each one of the toolkits, so that they can get the conversations on the campus. But now with the current legislation, you can carry on the campuses, and we need to get the word out as well on our campuses and our communities also. So we will come back on November 16th. Those of you who have a toolkit, please be prepared to come back and talk about what you have done. Baby steps, just contact one or two people to begin the conversation in your own home, over coffee, in the church, in the community agency. We are prepared to come and sit with you and talk with you about what we've done and how we can begin this work to go forward in our area. This is not an issue that we're going to stop. We're going to keep at this. And so you all have my email. Please contact me if you're interested. I would like you to come and speak with your group, so I'm happy to do that as well. Churches and communities. So we'll come back on November 16th and we'll have our discussion about where we are to gun violence, ending gun violence. We want to make this country safe and our community safe. All right, I think we're at our closing prayer. If you have any last questions, comments, anything I missed, thank you so much for coming. We have a massive room. We have 3 generations here. And I hope all of you got that picture. That's a wonderful, wonderful picture. 3 generations standing there talking about what it means not to have a gun. And so thank you for coming. Thank you, thank you. And thank you for supporting Madison. That's a wonderful legacy. And so I praise it. I praise it. I love to see it. I love to see it. Thank you. So as we close with prayer, we have our closing prayer up. Open our eyes, God. Such a vision of your coming kingdom.
Wait a minute, because, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote it. Gracious God, we hear your call to confront the bloodshed caused by guns in our community and throughout the nation. Open our hearts to your compassion and to share your grief over violence. Open our eyes and catch the vision of your coming kingdom in earth as it is in heaven. Open our minds to understand what you are calling us to do and to do. We pray, O Lord, for the power of your Spirit to take our formful wickedness and expose the evil and trafficking and improper use of violence. Break the grip of violence that fuel the appetite of our weapons. Unmask the idolatry of those with no guns as the answer to worldly problems. And change those who come from the blood of innocent people and creatures. We also recognize, O Lord, the violence in our hearts. May your peace take root in our lives. We lift up to you those prone to violence against others or themselves, and those involved in illegal gun trafficking, knowing that they too are your beloved. Open their eyes and hearts, we pray, to things that make for peace. May our petition and our witness, O Lord, be in conscience of your boundless grace and your uncompromising truth. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming.